Check the description for the following discount codes. This video is going to be a sort of more of a conversation piece rather than a facts and figures video. So if you hear the facts and figures, perhaps navigate away. Otherwise, what we're going to be doing is just sort of chatting on further from the video I did a couple of days ago, where I explained why a Vive Pro 2 isn't for me and why I won't be buying one. And also sort of replying to some of your comments on that video. And this is what's good about YouTube. It's like having a conversation with thousands of different people all around the world, and everyone has different ideas and different thoughts. And obviously we can't all think of everything. So there was, the title of this video about upgrading from a Valve Index is something I hadn't thought of when I did my previous video. And it still doesn't apply to me because I don't have a Valve Index and I still won't be buying a Vive Pro 2. But I thought it's a good one to chat about. But before we get into that, let's just address a couple of things from the last video. A few people pulled me up on the fact that I said there was only a slight increase in resolution from the Valve Index to the Vive Pro 2. Or what I actually said was something along the lines of you could buy an Index and the controllers for far less than the Vive Pro 2, and you're only getting a slight drop in resolution. Well, you're all quite correct. Of course, the resolution from the Index to the Vive Pro 2 is much bigger than a slight increase. It's a huge increase. In the back of my mind when I was speaking, I was thinking about things like the G2 and the Quest 2, where the increase in resolution to the Pro 2 isn't that much over those. And this is when having unscripted videos, doesn't do you any favors, because that was not quite a mistake, but you know what I mean. I was thinking about one thing and said another. But yes, you're all those few of you that said about that, you're quite right. It is a big step up in resolution from the Valve Index, but not so much from the G2 or even the Quest 2. Be interesting to see whether the sharpness is that noticeable. I don't think on a G2 it'll be that noticeable. It may be above a Quest 2, because it's a more reasonable step up in resolution, but still, a Quest 2 is a very sharp resolution as it is. So, I won't find out because I'm not going to get one, but maybe some of you, like in the comments that are pre-ordering them, because I see a few comments from people that are, will let me know how it fares if you have a G2 and a Quest 2, perhaps to compare it to. But my phrasing of slightly wasn't the best, and I apologise for that. But yes, upgrading from a Valve Index to a Vive Pro 2, because you're already in the ecosystem. You've already got good controllers. You've got the Index controllers. You've already got the base stations. So you're literally just swapping out one headset for another, and it should all just work. So that does negate a few of the negatives that I brought up about the Vive Pro 2, which is the package is phenomenally expensive, considering you get, Vive ones and you have to buy base stations and the headset, and it's sort of 1,300 notes. And then if you want to add the wireless, you're up to 1,700 notes. But yes, if you're quite right, if you've already got controllers and base stations, and this goes for people that have got the original Vive or the original Vive Pro. And perhaps a set of Index controllers, or maybe you're still rocking the ones. A couple of people in the comments said they still use the ones and they're happy with them, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with the ones myself. I'm not gonna. Well, no, that's not true. I don't like the ones myself, but I don't have a problem with other people using the ones. If you like them, that's entirely up to you. For me, I think they're horrible to use compared to almost any other controller. And what's interesting, talking about controllers, is the Valve Index controllers haven't really taken off in the way that we all, or I certainly expected them to. And again, this video is a conversational video, so it's going to be me sharing my thoughts and waffling on a bit. So if it ain't what you like, feel free to navigate away. But yeah, those Knuckles controllers that we all got super excited about, with the individual pressure sensitivity and finger tracking and the comfort and that, there aren't many games that actually use the additional hardware built into those controllers. And obviously there was a whole plethora of issues with them when they first released. They were going back under warranty time and time again from people, literally chewing through them. I haven't heard so much of that recently, so maybe they're they sorted the quality control out in the end. But yeah, the actual physical advantages they have functionality-wise has only really been utilised in a handful of games, which is a shame. You know, everyone seems to be sticking more to the sort of Oculus standard of controllers, and just, you know, even the G2 sort of blatantly copied or decided to sort of mirror the Oculus controllers, but without the capacitive touch sensitivity, which was a shame. Although those G2 controllers aren't the most comfortable, and they didn't do the best job, in my opinion and experience, of replicating the Oculus controllers. Proportions were a little off, and a few other bits and pieces. But anyway, I digress. But yes, upgrading. So let's say you got the Valve Index or an early Vive headset. You could just swap that out for this new Vive Pro 2, and you gain. Now, for the Valve Index, you don't gain field of view, because the Valve Index can go up to, I think it's 130 degrees, depending how close the lenses are to your face. So you don't gain field of view, and you don't gain refresh rate either. Again, the Valve Index can do 144, which is faster even still than what the Vive Pro 2 can do. So all you're gaining, if you go from a Valve Index to a Vive Pro 2, is the resolution, which is a big step up. So it's an interesting, you know, it's an interesting train of thought, really, because it's like, is it worth, in my opinion, the money for the Vive Pro 2, the headset, is still very strong for just a headset, you know, 700 odd notes, give or take, depending if you can get it discounted or not, for just a resolution increase. And also, you know, a lot of us prefer the audio solution that's on the Valve Index. Technically, it's almost industry standard or industry leading. And of course, the comfort of that headset for a lot of people, it is particularly comfortable. The material they use front and back is really, really nice. Again, comfort's down to your face and head shape, so you won't all share those thoughts. So, you know, 700 odd note upgrade for a bump in resolution. So it's a lot of money. But if you're in that ecosystem, you know, and you don't mind the fact that it looks very dated, and this is the other thing, another point someone mentioned, someone said how it looks doesn't matter, because when you're wearing it, you don't get to see it. And whilst for the period of time you're wearing it, the way it looks doesn't matter, from a marketing point of view and a sales point of view, having a really nice looking, modern, fresh product will sell way better than one that looks like a product from 3 years ago with just a slightly different spec sheet. I mean, that's just, you know, marketing 101. If you bring something new to market, you want to make it look good, make it visually and aesthetically appealing. And of course, alongside the way it looks will be its weight and its size. VR headsets are getting smaller, lighter, more sleek, more streamlined, you know, as time goes on. Eventually, you know, hopefully we want to get something super small and slim rather than these bulky things we have to have on our heads. So looking back at an old 2018 or late 2017 design that is big and bulky and hasn't lost any weight, as far as I know, I haven't actually checked the specs, so could be wrong, is very much not cutting edge. It's not innovating, it's not new. It doesn't make you look at it and go, oh wow, that looks amazing. Because it's that wow factor that from a marketing point of view, products need to have. They want prospective buyers to look at it and go, that looks the tits. I want one of those, you know, rather than, oh, looks just like the old one. What have they actually done? You know, oh, okay, yeah, they've bumped the res and they've changed the field of view and they've increased the refresh rate. You know what I mean? From a marketing point of view, you want impact. And you know, if you're looking at two headsets side by side, and one, so the spec is the same, one is looks like a 3-year-old one, like identical, and the other one is modern looking, it's sleeker, it's slimmer, it's lighter, maybe it looks more comfortable. You know, you're going to choose that one over the one that looks old. So I think, you know, personally, that the way it looks really does matter, especially when you factor in, you know, the way things are slimming down, getting smaller and lighter as headsets get revolutionised. Unless, of course, you're talking about sort of enterprise headsets, like the Vario headsets, for example. And there's another brand that's the name escapes me now, but they're big and they're heavy, but they're packed full of technology. So, you know, there's a bit of a trade-off there. And again, they're for enterprise use rather than people playing Beat Saber. And this is another point. Someone in the comments, again, this is mostly sort of talking about your comments from the last video. Someone said that HTC announced a while ago that they won't be releasing consumer headsets anymore and that they will only really be for enterprise use. And this is an interesting, they're kind of justifying the high price. And this is an interesting point as well, because the enterprise headsets, like the ones from Vario, for example, are a much higher spec than what the Vive Pro 2 is. Higher resolution, eye tracking, mouth tracking, you know, bloody temperature monitoring, all sorts of other features, you know, and the dual displays for each eye, super high resolution in the middle, and then just a high resolution around the outside edge. They're way above and beyond anything the Vive Pro 2 offers. They are, of course, a lot more money, you know, we're talking thousands here. So you might say the Vive Pro 2 for enterprise is an entry-level enterprise VR headset, but then it doesn't come with any enterprise features, you know. It offers what the Valve Index has done for the last few years in terms of refresh rate, or almost, it's a little lower, and in terms of field of view, and it now offers a sharper resolution that things like the G2 and even the Quest is creeping up there. You know, they've been out for almost a year now. So this is really the thing about this Vive Pro 2. There's no innovation. There's nothing new. There's nothing compelling. Someone else said, what did they say? They said it looks like they just had a load of Vive or Vive Pro stock hanging around the shelves, and they just decided to upgrade the display and then bosh them out. I'm sure that's not what they've done, but again, looking at it, it's what it looks like, you know, to a certain extent. When you want to bring out something new and you want to charge a really high premium for it, you really need to have a good list of reasons to buy, and everything from the way it looks to new features and innovation. And this is where the Vive Pro 2 just sort of slips up. Now again, comparing the Valve Index and saying about people upgrading, if sharpness is your top priority and nothing else matters, you know, then it's a good upgrade. Well, I don't say it's a good upgrade path. It is an upgrade path, but it's quite expensive. You can always sell on your Valve Index, I suppose, to try and close the gap a little bit. But it's definitely an upgrade path, and you know, people in the comments are going to do it for that reason alone. And again, and this is the other thing, we're narrowing down the portion of we're not narrowing it down. HTC are narrowing down the portion of the VR market that this headset's going to appeal to. And again, if they're only really doing it for enterprise sales, there's not enough, in my opinion, advancement, features and technology in this headset to appeal to the enterprise sector. And they've got their Focus line of headsets, which are enterprise only. So, you know, maybe people use the phrase prosumer, which you might refer to as just a normal consumer like me or you, but that almost has the money to buy the slightly more professional level stuff. So you might say it's sort of in that category. But again, it isn't offering anything new over a Valve Index or a G2, bar that bump in resolution, which above the G2 is quite small, above the Index is obviously high. So they're really narrowing down their potential customers in an already small niche. VR is a very small niche compared to other gaming platforms. How it fares enterprise-wise, I don't really know. I haven't got any facts and figures on that. But I found it quite interesting, you know, to hear everyone's thoughts. And let's just have a little look down my list of notes that I made. Oh yeah, someone quite rightly pointed out as well that you can buy the Valve Index controllers and base stations and this headset cheaper than you can buy it with the Vive Ones. So there'd be no reason to ever buy the Vive Ones, really. Someone actually mentioned that Vive Ones are used in an enterprise setting as almost laser pointers, and they feel more familiar to people in the enterprise market. Maybe that's a thing. It kind of sounds plausible. But again, like I say, if you're targeting enterprise, where's the innovation? Where's the new features? Where's, you know, doesn't really compare to the other sort of enterprise headsets like the ones from Vario, for example. So what else have we got? Oh yeah, someone quite rightly pointed out as well that you can buy the Valve Index controllers and base stations and this headset cheaper than you can buy it with the Vive Ones. So there'd be no reason to ever buy the Vive Ones, really. Someone actually mentioned that Vive Ones are used in an enterprise setting as almost laser pointers, and they feel more familiar to people in the enterprise market. Maybe that's a thing. But again, like I say, if you're targeting enterprise, where's the innovation? Where's the new features? Where's, you know, doesn't really compare to the other sort of enterprise headsets like the ones from Vario, for example. So what else have we got? Well, this is another thing someone actually said, maybe they're, because of the lack of innovation and the fact that they're reusing the same shell and strap and everything, maybe they didn't have the development budget to design a new shell, a new look, new controllers, you know, because the Cosmos was a massive flop, as we all know. So perhaps they were just trying to not spend as much money as possible on this one, just in case it doesn't do as well as they'd like. You know, it's all speculation, and this is what this video is about, really, just having a chat, because like I say, YouTube for me is like talking to thousands of people around the world. It's good to hear other people's views and have other people's input. Going back to the lack of wireless, which for me is a big deal. Some people obviously aren't worried about that, but other people in the comments were saying, oh no, you know, you can buy the wireless adapter. And, you know, like I said, first time round, you can, but it's another £360 and it drops the resolution and the refresh rate. So, you know, the biggest selling point of this headset really is its refresh rate, because that's the only, is its resolution, because that's the only thing that's really new and hasn't been done before, that higher res. And if you want to go wireless, not only do you have to pay a load of extra money and strap another thing to the top of your head, you lose the resolution that you've just gained. Now, the screen door effect will still be lessened because the physical pixels are actually smaller, but the sharpness won't be there. You'll be dropping back to sort of nearer a Valve Index type resolution. It's 17 something by something or another. I can't remember the exact numbers. So yeah, I still don't think it's a viable option as far as a wireless solution goes, compared to the simplicity of the Quest 2 and of course the Deca gear that's potentially coming out at some point this year. You know, that's a VR headset packed full of new features and that comes with wireless built in, and the price, you know, should be somewhere in the £400 or £500 region. You know, who knows what it'll actually be till it comes out. But that's an interesting VR headset to me. That's a headset that I will buy when it actually comes out, because we're seeing in that new innovation, new technology, new features. For me, like I said in my first video, the Vive Pro 2 just doesn't offer me anything that I haven't already got or have had, you know, apart from the slightly wider field of view. I haven't had anything with the field of view as wide as that. But resolution, there's the G2 that I had, you know, I moved that on because I wasn't very happy with it. And you know, and to be honest, the G2 was also hands down the most comfortable headset I've ever used. But again, this is face and head shape dependent. So lots of interesting little sort of angles and pros and cons and different reasons for people to buy and upgrade. You know, I had a few you sim racers saying that for you resolution is king and that's all you care about. You know, and you've got your RTX 3090 and a comparable CPU, and so for you, you don't care, you're going to get one because it's going to give you the best visual experience. And this is true. You know, it will be the best visual experience to date, at least looking at the spec, you know, and you don't care about any of the drawbacks. But again, this is all narrowing down the potential customers in an already small niche market. You know, if you're just appealing to the, and this is the other thing, if you're just appealing to VR enthusiasts out of the whole VR community, that really is a small part. You know, people with the RTX 3090s to be able to really make use of that resolution and that refresh rate. You know, again, I touched on this previously in the other video. If you want to run 120 Hertz at the native resolution of a Vive Pro 2, you need an RTX 3090. There's no way around it. Those of us with G2s, Quest 2s, I've got a RTX 2080. I can't run it, you know, native. It's just not in the AAA titles that have got high visual fidelity. And that's only, you know, running at 90 Hertz or even dropping back to 72 Hertz on the Quest 2 to try and get myself a steady bit of performance. So you really, again, HTC are really narrowing down the market for people that might want one in the first place, for people that can then actually run one, secondly, and then thirdly, for people that can do both of those things and don't mind the fact that it's a bit big and bulky and looks a bit outdated, and that potentially have to pay a load of money for if they want to get decent controllers and the base stations and the whole package. It's just not a smooth option, I don't think. And it certainly doesn't appeal to new VR users. If you want to, there's new VR users coming into our community every day. People out there buying Quest 2s and second-hand Quest 1s and even CV1s. I still see people in my comments saying they've just picked up a CV1 for 100 quid, really happy, blah, blah, blah. It's the first time in VR. VR is growing at a steady and reasonable pace. So if you're going to launch a headset, you think having some appeal to new users would be quite important, not just trying to sell a few headsets to the people that are already in VR with a high-spec PC that perhaps already have good controllers and base stations. You really, from a marketing point of view, it just doesn't seem like the best strategy, really. But again, going back to the enterprise portion of things, if they really don't care about us consumers, and so they're not trying to compete with things like the G2, the Valve Index, the Quest 2, the Deca Gear, whatever else might come out, if they're not worried about that and they're just aiming it at business, then I guess they don't really care. But again, I'm not seeing strong marketing towards that side of things either, especially with their Focus headsets, which is kind of going to compete with one another, albeit they're quite different. And then again, like I say, you've got the high-end enterprise stuff like the Vario headsets. But yeah, there's sort of an expansion on my thoughts about the Vive Pro 2 and a little chat and sort of sharing some of your comments from last time around. I think people with a Valve Index and you purely care about resolution and you're in the ecosystem, some of you, as you've already told me, are going to go ahead and get one. So that is a legitimate upgrade path and not one I'd thought of prior to making the other video, which is why it's good to have comments and chats with everybody. But yeah, any other thoughts and stick them in the comments. Any questions you might have or what have you. And one other thing I do need to also address. I only had one comment saying this, but one person calling me an Oculus fanboy because I'd referenced the Quest 2 in my previous video. I'm not an Oculus fanboy. I will buy any piece of technology that interests me, no matter who it's made by. Just looking around the room here, I've got 3-4 TVs from 4 different manufacturers. We've got Sony, we've got LG, we've got Panasonic, we've got Samsung. I'm not a brand whore, and I'm not a fanboy of any particular brand. If something's new and interesting and exciting, then I want to give it a go. I'm not buying a Vive Pro 2 because it's by HTC. I'm not buying a Vive Pro 2 because there's nothing really there that I haven't already had or experienced with other headsets apart from that small increase in resolution over a G2, But yeah, anyway, as always, thank you very much for watching and take it easy.